My name is Lena, and I had just turned 15 when my whole world flipped upside down. Let me give you a glimpse into my family. From the outside, we looked completely normal. Dad worked long hours while Mom stayed home. I had a little sister, Emily, who was 8 years younger than me. Dad managed a big company that, interestingly enough, actually belonged to my grandma, my mom's mum. Grandma was a powerhouse. She started small, running a few laundromats, but over time, she built an empire producing laundry detergents and household cleaning supplies. When she decided to retire, she offered Mum the company, but Mum wasn't interested, so Dad stepped up and took over. That's when things started getting messy. I still remember the day everything fell apart. I was in my room, trying to focus on my homework when I heard Mum screaming at Dad from downstairs. "You're nothing but a loser, Daniel. This is my house, my family's business. You should be thankful I let you run it." After that, things just spiraled. Mum and Dad barely talked, and when they did, it always turned into a shouting match. I did my best to keep Emily distracted, but even at 7, she could sense something was off. Then came the day that changed everything. I got home from school and saw Dad standing in the living room with a suitcase by his feet. My stomach dropped. "Dad," I said, my voice shaky. "What's going on?" He walked over and wrapped me in a tight hug. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he whispered. "I can't stay here anymore. It's not good for anyone." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "But what about Emily? What about me?" I asked, my throat tight. He pulled away, his eyes glistening with tears. "I love you both so much. Never forget that. But sometimes, love just isn't enough." He kissed my forehead, then turned to Emily, who was standing frozen, wide-eyed. He knelt down and hugged her close. "Be good for your big sister, okay, pumpkin?" And just like that, he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving this hollow, empty feeling in my chest. Mom got home an hour later. When I told her Dad had left, she barely reacted. She just nodded, like she had been expecting it. "Good riddance," she muttered. I stared at her in disbelief. "Mom, how can you say that?" She turned to me with this cold, unreadable look. "Your father cheated on me, Lena. Over and over again." I couldn't take it anymore. That night, everything felt different. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Mom laughed on the phone in her room, sounding happier than she had in months. I wondered who she was talking to, but honestly, I was too drained to care. Just when I thought nothing else could shock me after Dad left, Mom hit us with another curveball. One morning at breakfast, she casually dropped, "I have some news. I'm getting married." I nearly choked on my cereal. "What?" "Mom, Dad's only been gone for 3 months. She waved a hand dismissively. "Sometimes love happens when you least expect it, Lena. You'll understand when you're older." 2 weeks later, Richard moved in. He seemed fine, I guess. Tall, attractive in that way where people say, "Oh, he seems nice." But something about him never sat right with me. He made an effort with Emily, playing games with her, helping her with homework, but when it came to me, it was like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, changes were happening at the company too. After Dad left, Mum took over and brought Richard into the business. They worked well together, always brainstorming new plans. I tried to focus on my own life, school, friends, just normal teenage stuff, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was fading into the background of my own family. Then things got worse. One night during dinner, Mum casually announced, "We're moving. It's a great opportunity for the business." Then she added, "Richard and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you stay here." I blinked. "Stay here? Without you?" Mum barely hesitated. "The new house isn't very big, and you're almost done with school. It wouldn't make sense to transfer so close to graduation." It hit me like a punch to the gut. "So where am I supposed to go? Live on the street?" I asked, trying to hold back tears. "Don't be dramatic, Lena," Mum sighed. "You'll stay with your grandmother. She's already agreed." I stormed off to my room and slammed the door. Lying on my bed, tears of frustration and hurt rolled down my face. When did I become so disposable to my own mother? The next few weeks blurred by, packing, planning, and goodbyes. Well, not for me. The only tears came from Emily, who didn't want to leave her friends. And just like that, my family was gone. I helped Emily pack, doing my best to keep things light for her sake. "Will you come visit us, Lara?" she asked, her big brown eyes welling up with tears. I pulled her into a tight hug. "Of course, kiddo. You're not getting rid of me that easily." The day they left, I stood on the porch with Grandma, watching as the moving truck rumbled away. Mum gave me a quick, almost absent-minded hug, and Richard offered a stiff nod. Then they were gone, taking Emily with them. Living with Grandma wasn't nearly as bad as I'd feared. She had her own way of doing things, but she gave me space when I needed it, and always seemed to know when to show up with a cup of tea and a listening ear. Still, it never really felt like home. My 20th birthday arrived before I even realized it. That morning, I woke up feeling off. I should have been excited, but instead I just felt hollow. Mum called, of course. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Her voice was overly chipper, too bright to be real. "I'm so sorry we can't be there. Work is just crazy right now. We'll celebrate next month when we visit, okay?" We wouldn't. We never did. Not once since they moved. "Sure, Mum, sounds great." Grandma must have sensed something was up because she went all out. She let me invite a few friends over, ordered my favorite takeout, and even baked a cake from scratch. For a little while, I almost forgot everything. The next morning, Grandma called me into her office. The serious look on her face sent a jolt of anxiety through me. "Sit down, Lena," she said, motioning to the chair across from her desk. "We need to talk." Panic set in. Oh God, is she kicking me out? What am I supposed to do now? But then she smiled, pulled open a drawer, and slid a small folder across the desk. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Open it." I did, and nearly forgot how to breathe when I saw what was inside. "Grandma, is this—" She nodded, her eyes twinkling. "The company is yours now, Lena. I believe in you. You've got a good head on your shoulders, and I know you'll do right by it." "But Mom and Richard, they're running things," I stammered, still reeling. Grandma's expression tightened. "They're managing a branch, the main company, the real heart of it. That's yours now." I sat there, completely floored, me barely 20, suddenly the owner of a multi-million-dollar company. It felt unreal, like some bizarre dream I'd wake up from any second. I don't even know what to say," I finally managed. Grandma reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "You don't have to say anything," she said gently. "Just promise me you'll give it your best shot." I swallowed hard and nodded. "I will, I promise." She leaned back, satisfied. "Good. Now, there's one more thing I need you to do." I sat up straighter, hanging onto every word. "Call your father," she told me. "There's more to this story than you know. Talk to him, even if it's just for advice, hear him out." It took me a week to work up the nerve, but I finally dialed his number. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. When I saw him, my chest tightened. He looked older, more worn down, but his face lit up the moment he spotted me. At first, we just sat there, the silence stretching between us. But then, little by little, everything spilled out. The divorce, Mum's remarriage, their move, and now Grandma's decision. Dad listened quietly, his expression shifting with every word. When I finally finished, he exhaled slowly. "Laura, there's something you need to know about the divorce." Then he told me everything. How Mom had never respected him, always putting him down, belittling him, making him feel like he was nothing. He explained how, after a brutal argument, he made the worst mistake of his life. "I cheated on her," he admitted, his voice thick with regret, "and I hated myself for it. But your mother, she used it to destroy me. She threatened to take everything, our home, my savings, even you and Emily. She wanted me gone, to hand over all my assets and pay alimony for years." I sat there in stunned silence. This didn't sound like the mother I thought I knew. "Why didn't you fight back?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness and love. "Because of you and Emily," he said simply. "I didn't want you two caught in a nasty public battle. I thought this would be easier." As we talked, it felt like something heavy was lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my dad back. Before we left, I took a deep breath and asked, "Dad, how would you feel about helping me with the company as a consultant?" The way his face lit up said everything. The next few months were a blur. I buried myself in schoolwork, pulling all-nighters and cramming for exams. Before I knew it, I was standing on stage at my high school graduation, diploma in hand. Grandma was in the audience, beaming with pride. Mom and Richard, nowhere to be found. By then, I'd stopped expecting anything from them. As summer rolled in, I set my sights on college applications, ready to take my next big step. With Grandma backing me up and Dad rooting for me from afar, I set my sights high. When the acceptance letters started rolling in, I could barely believe it, but the biggest shock came when I opened the financial aid package from my dream school. Full ride. I stared at the letter, my brain struggling to process it. Grandma let out a cheer and pulled me into a tight hug. I knew you had it in you, kiddo. All those late nights, all that hard work, it all paid off. I chose to major in business management. It just made sense, especially with everything going on with the company. The idea of running a business still felt surreal, but I was determined to make Grandma proud. To celebrate, she decided we'd have a little party, just the two of us. We ordered some fancy takeout and popped open a bottle of sparkling cider, because no way was Grandma letting me drink champagne, even though I was technically an adult. We were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Grandma frowned, clearly not expecting visitors. "I'll get it," I said, setting down my fork. The moment I opened the door, my stomach dropped. Mom and Richard stood there, looking irritated and impatient. Before I could react, they barged right in. Mom didn't even bother with pleasantries. "Mother, we need to talk about the company." I stood there, stunned, as she launched straight into a rant. She didn't ask about my graduation, didn't care about my college plans. It was like I didn't even exist. "Why can't we access the main accounts?" she snapped. "And why are you blocking the fund transfers to our branch?" Grandma's expression turned to steel. "Because it's not your call anymore, Rebecca. The company belongs to Laura now. She's the one in charge of its future and its finances." The room fell into an awkward silence. I could feel the weight of Grandma's words hanging in the air. Mom's face flickered through shock, then frustration, and finally something more calculating, and just like that, her whole demeanor shifted. "Lena, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "I missed you so much." I blinked, caught off guard. Mom stepped closer, reaching out like she wanted to touch my arm. Instinctively, I took a step back. "We've settled in so well in the new city," she continued smoothly. "We have a beautiful house, and there's a room just for you. We could set up a desk, get you a brand new computer for school and work." "No, Mom," I said, my voice firm. "I'm happy here. My friends are here. My school is here. Grandma needs me." Mom's smile faltered for a split second before she recovered. "Well, if that's the issue, we could always move back here," she suggested. "We could live in our old house just like before. Wouldn't that be nice?" I shook my head. "It's not about the house, Mom. It's about everything." Her expression darkened. I could see the frustration bubbling under the surface. Before she could lash out, I asked the question that had been weighing on me for months. "Mom, why did you really divorce Dad?" She froze, visibly caught off guard. "Well, your father," she started before regaining her composure. "He cheated on me. More than once. I got tired of it. He left us for his mistress and never paid a dime in alimony." "That's not true," I said quietly. "Dad told me everything. It only happened once, and it was because of the way you treated him." Mom's expression twisted with anger. "He didn't abandon us. You kicked him out," I continued, "and he has been paying alimony every single month." Her face contorted in rage. "How dare you?" she spat. "You ungrateful little brat! You have no right to question me. Everything here is mine. I decide who stays and who goes." Grandma, who had been silently watching the exchange, finally spoke up. Her voice was steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it before. "That's enough, Rebecca," she said firmly. "You seem to be forgetting something. This house, the company, they're mine, not yours. And I gave the company to Lena because I trust her judgment more than yours right now." She took a step forward, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I think it's time for you to leave." I watched, my emotions tangled as Grandma calmly but firmly escorted Mom and Richard out of the house. The door clicked shut behind them, and for a moment, I just stood there. A strange mix of sadness and relief settled over me. I had lost something tonight, the last bit of hope I had in my mother. But at the same time, I had gained something even more important, a clear sense of my future and the certainty that I wasn't alone. "What now?" I murmured against Grandma's shoulder. She pulled back, giving me a small, knowing smile. "Now, we finish celebrating your college acceptance," she said, "and tomorrow we start planning for your real future, not the one your mother tried to force on you." The next morning, after everything that had happened, I woke up to the sound of voices downstairs. Curious, I crept down and peeked into the living room. To my surprise, Dad was sitting on the couch, deep in conversation with Grandma. I sat down next to them, and Grandma got straight to the point. "I've been thinking about Emily," she said. "Your mother, well, I don't think she's in the best place to take care of her right now." She turned to Dad. "I think you should fight for custody." I felt a spark of hope. "Really? Dad, are you going to do it?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking both nervous and determined. "Yeah, I am. It's not going to be easy, but Emily deserves better than this." I couldn't stop myself. I wrapped my arms around him. "Thanks, Dad." As we pulled away, Grandma cleared her throat. "There's more," she said. "I hired a private investigator to look into your mother and Richard's relationship." The next few weeks passed in a strange new routine. I threw myself into my college classes, focusing harder than ever before. Dad started coming over more often, and we slowly worked on rebuilding our relationship. Having him back in my life felt right. Then, about 2 weeks later, Grandma called us over. Her expression was serious as we sat down. "The investigator's report came in," she said, getting straight to the point, "and it's worse than we expected." She laid everything out, each fact hitting me like a punch to the gut. Mum had been cheating on Dad for years, long before they even split. Her thing with Richard had started while she was still married. There were hotel receipts, records of expensive gifts. It was all laid out in black and white. But that wasn't even the worst of it. "Richard's a con artist," Grandma said firmly. "He's done this before. He gets close to wealthy women, gains their trust, convinces them to move their money, then he disappears." I felt my stomach twist. "So when they wanted to move the company's money," Grandma nodded. "Exactly. He was setting everything up to take it and vanish." We sat there in silence, trying to process it all. Then Grandma said what we were all thinking. We had to confront Mum with the truth. The meeting was set for the next day. Mum showed up at Grandma's house, already looking irritated and impatient. Her whole demeanor shifted when she saw Dad was there too. What followed was one of the hardest conversations I had ever been part of. Grandma laid everything out, the affair, Richard's criminal history, his plan to steal from the company. I watched Mum's face the whole time, hoping to see some kind of regret, some sign she understood. But all I saw was denial. "This is absurd, Mum," scoffed, crossing her arms. "Richard loves me. He would never do something like that. You're all just jealous. You don't want me to be happy. Dad tried to reason with her. Rebecca, please, just look at the facts. Think about Emily. Is this really the kind of man you want around our daughter?" But Mum refused to listen. She shot up from her seat, her face red with anger. "I don't have to sit here and take this. Richard is a good man, and I trust him completely. You're all just trying to ruin my life." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For a moment, we just sat there, the weight of it all settling in. That's when I realized this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a long, brutal fight. But as I looked at Dad and Grandma, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't facing it alone. The next few months were a blur of legal battles and emotional roller coasters. With Grandma's unwavering support and her legal expertise, Dad officially filed for custody of Emily. I did my best to stay focused on school, but it was hard to ignore everything happening around me. When the custody hearing finally came, I knew I had to be there. It was brutal. Mum's lawyer tried to paint Dad as an absent father, but our lawyer came prepared. He laid out proof. Dad's regular alimony payments, his constant efforts to be part of our lives, the stable home he'd built. Then came the bombshell. The investigator's full report on Richard's criminal history and the plan to drain the company's funds. I watched Mum's face as it all unraveled. First she looked stunned, then furious, and finally lost. For a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. When the judge awarded full custody of Emily to Dad, I felt a rush of relief. Emily would finally be safe. But at the same time, there was an undeniable sadness that things had come to this. As we stepped out of the courthouse, Emily clinging to Dad, Mum appeared in front of us. "This isn't over," she hissed, her eyes full of rage. Grandma stepped between us. "Yes, Rebecca, it is," she said firmly. "Go home." Things only went downhill for Mum after that. The judge ruled that she had to pay child support to Dad for Emily. She was completely blindsided. She'd always assumed she'd be the one receiving support, not the one forking it over. I threw myself into school and learning the ins and outs of the company, doing my best to stay out of the family chaos. But I won't lie, there was a certain satisfaction in hearing that Richard had ditched Mum, running off with another woman, and a hefty chunk of her savings. One crisp autumn evening, Dad called. His voice was tight with emotion. "Your mother showed up at my place today," he said. "She wants to patch things up, says she made a mistake and wants us to be a family again." My chest clenched. A small part of me, just a tiny part, wanted him to say yes, wanted to rewind time to when things felt normal. But I wasn't that naive anymore. We'd all been through too much. "I told her no," Dad said firmly. "I told her that ship sailed a long time ago. I'm not putting you or Emily through that again." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. "Good," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. "You deserve better, Dad. We all do." There was a pause, then Dad chuckled. I could hear the smile in his voice. "When did you get so wise, Laura?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I learnt from the best. After we hung up, I glanced around my room at Grandma's house. My textbooks were scattered across the desk, stacked next to a pile of company reports. Pictures of me, Dad, and Emily were pinned to my bulletin board, their smiling faces reminding me of how far we'd come. This wasn't the life I'd pictured a year ago. It wasn't perfect. There were still things to figure out, plenty of obstacles ahead, but it was real, and it was mine. I thought about Mum, alone now, after all her schemes and manipulations. A small part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly it felt like justice. She made her choices, and now she had to live with them. As for me, I had a family who loved me, a business to run, and a future wide open with possibilities. It wasn't the path I had expected, but as I stood at the edge of this new chapter, I realized something important. Time flew by as I juggled college and running a multi-million-dollar company. Before I knew it, I was halfway through my degree, buried in textbooks and financial reports. Weekdays were a blur of lectures and late-night study sessions, but weekends, those were sacred. Every Sunday, I packed my bag and headed home to Dad and Emily. The second I stepped through the door, Emily would come barreling toward me, yelling, "Laura!" before tackling me in a hug. At 12, she was all long limbs and endless energy. Dad would appear from the kitchen, usually wearing an apron just as dinner was ready. He'd grin and say, "Just in time to eat." Those weekends grounded me. We'd have dinner together, Emily chatting non-stop about school while Dad and I talked business. After Emily went to bed, Dad and I would stay up late, hashing out company strategies. Thursdays were always spent at Grandma's, where she cooked up a feast, filling the house with the smell of roast chicken and warm apple pie. After lunch, we'd sit on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. "I always knew you had it in you, Lena," Grandma would say, squeezing my hand. As graduation crept closer, excitement and nerves tangled inside me. True to his word, Dad had been running the company smoothly while also preparing me to take over. One evening, he sat me down. "I'm ready to hand over the reins whenever you are." I hugged him tight. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Life wasn't perfect. There were still tough decisions ahead, still a business to run. But as I looked at my family, Dad, Emily, Grandma, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, we'd face it together.